Rev up your engines!
Well, me says, what's the most painful thing that ever happened to you working on a car? Okay, I can still feel it in this finger here. I was working on a car, I was putting a clutch in, and the transmission slipped off of my jack and was falling to the ground. I was stupid enough to stick my hand to try to hold it up, and the transmission fell right on my finger and crushed it. Man, did it get sore. I can still feel it. And that was like 20-something years ago. So now I realize if I see it fall, I'm just going to get my hands out of the way. Hey, if it breaks, it breaks. But that was the most painful thing. My grandfather, on the other hand, he was a mechanic too. He had an entire car fall on him when a lift broke, and his whole life his nose was slightly askew to one side. Because in those days, they didn't go to the doctor. I broke his nose. Yeah, it stopped bleeding, and he just left it that way. Boy, did he snore weird. We were kids. They used to take us on vacation, and you could hear him snoring a mile down the road because his nose was broken. Man, he really snored. Sean Stell says, I got a 2012 Infiniti FX35, a slow leak and one tire. Dealer says I have to replace all because the all-wheel drive tire is only at 15,000 miles. Can I just replace one? Well, the problem with all-wheel drive vehicles is if you want it to run correctly and not wear out early, no, you can't just replace one. If you keep it for any length of time, what happens is it's all-wheel drive, and the computers are monitoring everything. So if you put a new tire on one side, the other side is a somewhat worn tire. The all-wheel drive system can be continually having to be compensated by the computer because it sees the one side is different than the other, which it really doesn't know. It just sees that one's spinning different than the other, so it's always going to keep changing the gears in the back, and it can destroy transfer cases and transmission stuff that way. So, but it takes, thousands of miles. If you're going to sell a vehicle, you can buy one. But if you're going to keep it, you're going to have to buy all four tires. That's just how those all-wheel drive systems are. That's why I tell people, are you sure you want to buy an all-wheel drive car? Because there's a lot more expense involved in driving them correctly than there is another car. You can change whatever tires you want whenever you want. Cesar Ramos says, I got an '06 Ford Mustang GT. It's not filling the other half of the gas tank. Okay, I'm assuming you got that saddle gas tank. Well, the saddle gas tank, there's one on one side, one on the other. And sometimes the one side, if it ever gets dry, the stupid thing won't get anything in it. So what you want to do is force a tube down in there and pump some gasoline until it fills up, and then never, ever run your car low on gas again. Whenever you get down to like between a third and a quarter, go fill it up so it doesn't empty. Those saddle tanks have had problems with that. One side of the saddle will go dry and the other won't. So that's what you want to do. You want to fill it up manually and then never run it low on gas again. Steve Ruiz says, Scotty, what do you think of a 2018 to 2020 Honda Passport? I'm not really a big fan of the bigger Honda vehicles, but they're decent vehicles. I just talked to a neighbor's plumber the other day, and he had one for work, and he loved it. He had 200-something thousand miles on his Passport. He liked it. So, it's all what you like, what you want to pay for. I'm more of a Toyota man myself, but they aren't bad vehicles. They can last quite some time. I personally think you get more bang for your buck buying equivalent Toyota, but you compare a Passport to like a Chrysler product, you can't even compare them. They're not in the same universe, so they're not bad vehicles, and they can be fun to drive around in. When they're brand new, they're a little pricey, but they're decent vehicles. Iceberg says, automatic transmission fluid versus power steering fluid in steering system. All right. What you have to do is look at your system on your car and what is recommended. For example, years ago, Toyota didn't care if you put automatic transmission fluid in their power steering or the power steering fluid. That you could use either. They came with power steering fluid, and most of them had power steering fluid. There's lots of systems out there, and you got to stick to what it was made for. Like take, for example, a lot of the European ones, they use a very fancy mineral oil-based one. You can't mix anything else with it. You got to stick to what it came with. And, of course, realize many modern cars don't have any fluid in the power steering system because they're electronic. They're not pure electronic. You're not turning a wheel that turns electric. It's just using an electric motor as a boost to make it easier to turn. Make sure you're using the right stuff in your car, and if you got a choice, you can use whatever you want. But, take a Honda. Honda uses a Honda power steering fluid, and you can only use the Honda power steering fluid. If you use another one, a lot of times the system will break down. So some cars are very particular about it. My advice with that stuff is always stick to what it originally came with in the factory. Kevin Brandon says, what do you think about me using Blue Devil oil leak stop on my Toyota Paseo 1996? Well, I've never used that. For any kind of oil leaks, I use AT205 reseal. It's made by a company called ATP, Automatic Transmission Products, out of Chicago. And that's the best thing I can find. But realize that fluid leak, things like that, the only thing they're going to do is they're going to help the seals, oil seals. So let's say you got a leaking rear main seal on your engine. It can help that because it's a seal. It's a rubber seal. It can rejuvenate the rubber. And those rubber seals, if you ever took one out, on the inside, they got a little spring. And the spring holds it on. So if the rubber's rejuvenated, the spring can keep it squished down and it can stop leaking. Let's say you have a gasket leak, like a head gasket or valve cover leak. The seal won't do anything because that's just a gasket. And there's nothing to expand or contract a rubber seal with a spring. And it won't help that at all. So if you do have a seal leak, some seal leaks like AT205 can actually do a really good job. But if it's a gasket, you got to replace the gasket. Joe Loco says, would it be wise to buy a 94 Nissan 300ZX with 301,098 miles? Well, your name says it all, Joe Loco. That would be a very loco thing to do. That's too many miles. I mean, those are great cars. Those 300ZXs were great cars, but that's a lot of miles. Everything on that vehicle is going to be worn out. And the problem with those are, man, they're electronic nightmares as they age. I've had customers buy them with the idea of restoring them and having them for a fun, zippy car. And almost all of them ended up getting rid of them because they said, gee, I got to throw too much money into these things. Differentials, if they're automatics, automatic transmissions, wiring harness for the fuel injectors. When they're that old, things go wrong. It's kind of a foolish thing to do. Unless you're a mechanic, you want a weekend toy that you can play around with. LP says, my gas light won't come on and I changed the bulb. 02 Tundra. Okay, I'm assuming you mean the little light that comes on when you're getting low on gas. Well, unfortunately, you change the bulb, that didn't fix it. 99% of the time, it's the sending unit in the gas tank. The sending unit has a float on it, tells you how much gas. When it gets to a certain level, it reaches the part that sends power to turn that light on. Now, it amazes me they last as long as they do. You got, what, an 18-year-old Tundra. And that thing has been soaking in gasoline for 18 years. So it's amazing they last as long as they do. But the odds are you need a new sending unit inside the gas tank. That's what breaks on those. So, I mean, if your gauge itself works, I'd live with it for that little. You never should drive it under a quarter tank anyway because the crud can get bounced around and you could suck air and destroy your fuel pump. So, I mean, I as long as the gauge worked, I personally would live with it. Sir and Seth says, is it safe to spray GDI valve cleaner in my GDI 2.0 turbo engine? Sure, as long as you follow my video. I got a video. You just can type in cleaning intake valve Scotty and then you'll be able to see the video. And it shows you exactly how to spray it into the intake to clean the valves. And the systems do work. There's a whole bunch of cleaners. Just buy them that say GDI engine valve cleaner and those will be the best ones. Now, if it's really, really coked up like some Volkswagens do, you actually have to pull the intake manifold off and you have to physically clean them using one of those sandblasting machines, but you don't use sand because that'd ruin the engine. You use like shells, nut shells, and you blast them with the shells because they're softer and they'll get the carbon off the valves, but they won't damage the aluminum or the valves themselves. So you'd have to blast them with nutshells. That bad. But if there's just a little, the spray can actually work. It doesn't hurt anything. Brandon and Carol says, hey, Scotty, what do you do if a bird managed to get into your air conditioning vents? Well, it would have to be one tiny, immensely small bird, because those vents are tiny little things, and I've never seen a bird that small. Even a hummingbird couldn't fit into one of those things. Now, I have had customers that got mice get in there, but the mice got in the car somehow. They left the windows or the doors open. They can't get in from the vent system, but they can get on the inside of the car and climb around inside the dash. Yeah, that they could do. But they couldn't get in there. There's no room. One, the holes are too small, and two, most of them have screening material to keep leaves and stuff out, and they'd never be able to get by the screens either. G says, hey, Scotty, any extra maintenance for Toyota electric steering? Thanks. Not any maintenance per se. It's an electronic boost motor that's sealed from the elements. And they're sealed pretty well because I work on a lot of Toyotas. I've never seen electronic power steering system break yet. Not a single one. So they're pretty well made. Stay away from flood water. If it goes underwater, who knows how long it can stay underwater. You know, it's like my phone. It says it's waterproof for such a certain period of time. Like what? After that, it's not waterproof magically? So Stay away from water, you know? I mean, if you live up north where there's a lot of salt and grime, maybe find where it is on your car, and then every once in a while go to a car wash with hot water or an indoor garage and clean all the salt off of it for corrosion and stuff. The only other thing is just keep a good battery in the car because it's an electric part, and if your battery gets weak, it uses a reasonable amount of power. So have your battery checked every once in a while. When it goes bad or it's starting to go bad, just replace it right then and don't wait till it completely craps out. So it'll always have a good supply of power. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.